Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Video Mail for the week of April 30th, 2012. Lucky you get 5 video mails in the month of April. That's kind of sweet. Don't forget, the Ask Video Mail is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one, but I need your question if I'm going to answer it. So please send me your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions and I answer the ones I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a dumb question, and you can even send me your Maya file to open on camera and to distribute to the rest of the members so we can all learn from each other. It's the best way to take advantage of your subscription. Please do so today if you haven't sent in a question. It's fun and easy. And I'm answering, for instance, a question from a new member today, so it's not too late to get a question in. So please send it in if you haven't already. I'm having a lot of fun. It's crazy. This year's going by really, really fast, I feel, for me. But at the same time, I'm still, having a great time. I think a lot of exciting things are going on at the studio. Obviously, the little painter. The funding couldn't have gone better, and things like that. A few minor setbacks, like hurting my back, but I'm feeling a little bit better every day. You're probably going to see me at a standing desk in the weeks to come. I'm switching to that, but I haven't set it up yet. Overall, I'm just feeling really positive. So I just want to share that positive vibe with everybody. Just put that out there. Hope you're excited. Hope you're having a great time with animation, and I hope I'm helping you out. I hope I'm a part of your enthusiasm here at on the site. So just thank you for being here. Okay. Let's see, a little bit of news. I'm going to be doing a webcast next month for KennyRoy.com members. It's going to be really exciting and a lot of fun. I'll announce what that's going to be specifically next month in May. I'll let you know how to check that out, where to go, and what to see. And you can tell your friends. There will be definitely promo codes floating around. That means that they can just sign up if they want to, even just for the day, and cancel right away, just so that they can be inside the site and see the webcast. But I do need to make sure that it's members only, just because between you and me, it was $2,100 to do all the webcasts that I did last month. So it can't be super public. But I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with the webcast. So stay tuned for that. Look around the site. You're probably not going to be able to miss the email. And that reminds me, Aweber. If you go right here, there is a link to sign up to the newsletter. If you haven't signed up to the newsletter, I'm not sending out emails through the KennyRoy.com site anymore. It doesn't have any customization options, and it's really cumbersome. So please sign up on the newsletter. I give out a free video and Ask Video Mail lecture pack or a lecture every single month to one lucky person signed up to the newsletter. So that's the motivation to be on there. And also lots of news and announcements are going to be in the newsletter. So please sign up for that. Okay. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I give out updates there as well. And also, it's just good to have a lot of social presence, people passing the word around on KennyRoy.com, and etc. Okay. Great. Let's just dive into the question. I think we're in for a treat this week. This question is a good one. So let's check it out. Great question. I have actually brought this issue up a few times in lectures, and I thought I would go in depth in this video mail to answer this question kind of once and for all. Or not once and for all. It's always worth, kind of exploring and going back in. There's so much depth to animation. You can go forever, really. So let's talk a little bit about, well, first of all, what James Baxter said. I listened to that section of the podcast. You should go to animationpodcast.com. It's a fantastic site, really, really, really good resource. It's fantastic to listen to really, really well-known artists do their thing, and I encourage you all to go check it out. So I listened to that section. You should too. Listen to the whole thing. Listen to the whole show. And basically what James Baxter was saying is that when you're drawing, if you are drawing, all your drawings slow into a pose, that's basically going to shift the timing of what you thought was your key pose, that in such a way that really you're almost at the end of that moment by the time you slow into it with your drawings, basically. So at first blush, it's almost like that only applies really to 2D. Well, not really, because in 3D, we have the same overall concept. We're dealing with the same things. And particularly when you deal with stepped keys, because stepped keys are in a way a drawing. In a way, they are your image of your keyframe, because there's no interpolation. It just snaps to the next one, right? Okay. So that being the case, what you need to do is decide, and this is part of your workflow, and I've said this before in lectures, but let's go really into it. You have to decide exactly what that moment defines for you and you alone, according to your workflow. See, for James Baxter, what he's decided is that if you make a drawing and then you slow into that, that's basically going to shift that moment, shift that pose to a later frame. It's basically going to make it so that that drawing is a key, that key frame. What is a key frame to him? It's actually kind of like that last moment where you've arrived and settled at that pose. Okay, that's great. That's fine. For me, it's totally different. Maybe it's because I work in 3D. Okay, maybe not. But for me, it's different, and especially when we talk about step keys. So let's take a look here. I'm just going to draw this out. Shouldn't be too confusing. So if you have a channel, let's just say like it's a rotate channel or whatever, and you have two step keys. Oops, two step keys like this, right? Because there's no interpolation. Let's do 3. Okay. So here are my 3 keys. All right. Now, if you just hit spline, all right, let me make a new layer. Just installed Sketchbook 2013, and was very surprised to see the designer edition. I'm gonna have to dive into that. I have no idea what it does. Okay, so if you have your 3 keys, if you just hit spline, you're gonna get something like this, right? Because there's very, very, very just like soupy interpolation, okay? And that's great and all if that's what you want, but normally it's not what you want, okay? Normally what we want is something that has a lot more predictability in it. So I like to turn my stepped keys into copied pairs before I spline, okay? So this is what that means. Let me use the marker or the brush. Shrink this down. Okay, so here I have a keyframe, here I have a keyframe, and here I have a keyframe. All right, so we've already seen what happens if I just spline it like that. All right, I like to add a new keyframe that defines my holds. How long are my holds? Because that way, when I spline, and I actually don't use spline, okay, I use clamped. Let's do a new layer here. When I do clamped, it'll actually give me these flats right here, okay? Now, if it's a little bit off, which I'll talk about in a second, it will actually give me some overshoot. But let's just take this at face value for now, okay? So this is what I get. Now, if this is the result, what does that keyframe, that first key on this hold, what does that represent? Well, for me, it doesn't represent the end, because this represents the end. And for James Baxter, I don't think he's talking about like long moving holds, but definitely poses that you can see that the character is cruising into and out of. Okay, not just like not going through. Okay, but definitely coming into and then out of. I feel like he feels that when he makes a drawing, use a new color right here. If he makes a drawing right here, that has to do all of his slow in and maybe a little bit of overshoot, and then he arrives right here. So he has all of these drawings along the way to contend with, okay, before he gets to that key pose, okay, that key frame. All right. So let me erase here. Oops, I don't want to erase that. Just this. Okay. So. All right, so let's take that as one example. Now, what I also do, let me hide this one more layer. What I also do is I will do a slightly relaxed pose on my copied pairs for when I'm sure it's going to be a moving hold that needs, a little bit of life to it. Okay. And then normally I'll add a breakdown that has some fundamentals built in. So like some anticipation or some overshoot or both. Okay? These are getting a little bit close. Let me just make this a little bit wider. Actually, no, I'm going to do it over here instead. Okay? A little bit of anticipation, a little bit of overshoot. Okay, just like that. I'll build those in as breakdowns. And let's say I'll make this pose just slightly relaxed. The result will be that I get, that my clamped will give me a spline result right here, not a flat result, and I can predict the amount of overshoot that I'm getting and anticipation that I'm getting, okay? So basically, let me remove that line I just did. This layer basically represents what my keys look like, okay? So for a 3D animator with my workflow, my keys represent a thought out workflow that will guarantee predictability. All right? So let's go through one by one. This is my start pose. This is what these keys define, okay? Add a new layer again. This is my start pose. This is defining the length of my moving hold. This is defining the amount of, this is the length of my hold. This key is the amount of movement in my moving hold, okay? This is, again, the length of the hold. This is the amount of anticipation, the amount of overshoot, and then the end pose, and then the length of the hold on that end pose, all right? So 3 poses. Let's say that this is a really short shot, like a 72 frame shot, those kinds of shots that I beg you guys to do, okay? 24 frames, another 24 frames, slightly dyslexic. I almost said dyslexic. Can you believe that? I tried to say dyslexic and I almost said dyslexic. I can't believe it. I'm going crazy in my old age. Okay, so if this is a 72 frame shot, okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All I need is 8 keys to really define everything for me. Okay. Now, normally this key on the left here will have a little bit of drift on it, and so will this one. But it's not a different key. Okay. So it's still 8 keys. I can do 3 poses with 8 keys. And what my key, what it really is, for me, is different depending on how I'm defining it. So you can define it differently. Let me show you a totally new example. Okay. Totally new example. All right, same kind of setup. Okay, an animation that has 3 keys. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now you may, if you're this kind of person, you may say, okay, this is actually the end of my moving hold. All right, you might want to define your keyframes as the end, and that's fine. Okay, all that means though is that when you spline it, you're going to have to add enough breakdowns that a lot of overshoot on that one, that the resulting curve, your new curve, okay, is consistent with that. Here we have a little bit of overshoot. We had a little bit of drift in the beginning. Let me talk through it again. A little bit of moving hold, a little bit of drift. We overshoot, stick the pose. Here's the end. There's that key that I defined. Okay. Anticipate again. A lot of I missed it. Anticipate, overshoot a lot, and then come back up to here. Now these are perfectly fine. You can totally define your keys this way if you like. And this is a lot more like what James Baxter is saying. Because when he's drawing, what he finds himself doing, apparently, is deciding on this pose, but then between this moment and this moment, he finds himself basically slowing out of this key, or this is the slow out of this key, okay? Having to do a couple in-betweens, maybe a little bit of overshoot, and then these keys right here are slowing into this new pose that kind of has still a little bit of drift as it comes into, bam, right here, that frame that he drew. And that is totally, again, totally fine. You'll understand totally different, completely different from the way that I look at it, and I think most 3D animators look at it. Maybe it's because visually we're presented, let me hide this layer again, visually we're presented with stepped keys that it's kind of hard to get away from the visual that this is the end of your pose. But I can again totally imagine a 2D animator coming into 3D or even as he's just working on his own animation or her animation, feeling like they're defining these moments, these really strong moments here with these drawings, and then having to do all these drawings to just get into it. Okay? So however you define it, my point as like the workflow like mega proponent here is you have to define it. However you define it is fine, but you have to define it. Otherwise, you have zero predictability. If one key is the beginning of your pose, and then this one is the end of your pose, and then this one is the beginning again, then how are you ever going to move into blocking, ever, knowing how the timing is going to pan out in front of you? How? It's impossible. First of all, there's no way you can keep all this in your head, especially when you start getting up into 100, 200 frames. No way you can keep all this in your head, okay? So for that reason alone, you have to pick one definition of your key and stick to it. But even more than that, you need predictable results. And this is, my workflow is why I'm able to build in some of the fundamentals into my in-betweens and my breakdowns as I go from blocking into blocking plus. Okay? That's how I'm able to do it. If you want that kind of predictability, then you need to define it. Okay? If you haven't seen any of the 24-hour animation marathon videos, they're freely available for download on the kennyroy.com homepage. Just go to the public page, and there's a link right on the front there. And if you download those, if you watch about halfway through I guess that would be video like part 7 or 8. I think I'm starting to add those breakdowns that have the fundamentals built in, like overlap and follow through, and I think I build some moving holes in there, and you'll see every single time it's the same way. Okay, so in terms of timing and spacing, how you define your keys, it will mean everything. With 3D, it's simple. It's very easy because we have a flipbook, basically a pencil test software built into Maya, right? Because if you're on stepped keys, you just hit play and it basically flips it for you. So it's very easy for us to play with timing. And what I want to caution you about is that as you're playing with timing, it is so super simple and easy for your brain to fill in the gaps. Our brain fills in the gaps incredibly well. All right, anybody's brain does. You don't even have to be an animator for your mind to build in the to fill in the gaps where things are missing. Okay, especially with things that are like very physical based, like a bouncing ball, for instance. A bouncing ball is so physical that you can remove just random frames from a bouncing ball, and the human eye and brain will fill them all in. It's very, very incredible. And so especially with physical actions, but even filling in the physicality of performance-based shots, our brain will do a lot for us. So my caution is that you don't define your keys based on what you're seeing once you hit play in step mode, especially. You define them well before. And the reason is because if you know that you are seeing the very first frame that the character has arrived at the pose, as opposed to kind of like that last moment of the pose, then you can have even more predictable results as you go into spline. Okay? It's as if what you're watching is much more representative of the timing you're going to get if you define it beforehand. Otherwise, your brain's going to fill in the gaps. So if a character like bounds, and this is all step mode, like bounds up and then leaps in the air and lands or whatever it is, especially like on that physical action, okay, you're going to get so much of your brain filling in that if you don't think about, okay, this is actually literally the moment that he lands and strikes that pose or whatever, it's all going to get muddy once you spline. If you don't know that these are all the frames you have and everything else is in air, for instance, then that jump is going to be extremely different in its timing when you go into splining. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I found myself many a time timing, especially things like jumps, where I have the character here and then I'll build the pose on the ground, and then they'll be like in air, supposedly. I'll build a pose in air, and then when I spline, I'll realize they're in air for way too long. And what I realized is that the pose that I built really should be after they land and kind of stand back up. You see what I'm saying? So if you have to get that moment when he lands so that you can time that jump. Does that make sense? So he'll land, you'll have that pose, you'll have a little bit of crumple as he takes the weight on his legs and kind of stands back up, maybe a little bit of overshoot on that breakdown, and then hits that pose that you had. But if you have the pose over here where the character's getting ready to jump, and then the pose right here where he's already jumped, chances are you're going to be just like me, and when you spline it, it's going to hang in air forever. What's going on? And then you're going to have to find, all right, this is where this is where the frames are hiding that I need to get rid of, and then do all of that physical action before. Okay, so that was my fault. I should have said this is the same every single time. I'm defining my keys as that first moment, and time that better. So you'll get much better timing if you start defining these keys much stronger, okay? That was a really great question. I really enjoyed listening to that animation podcast. Check it out, animationpodcast.com. They've got great resources over there. Check them out. And please send in more Ask Videomail questions. The address to send those to is webmaster@kennyroy.com. I promise I answer all the questions I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Please send it in if you haven't already. I'm looking forward to a really exciting summer. I hope you are too. Thanks for being here. Good luck with your animation. And as always, rock on.